Hey there, business owners. This is Mentor Shelley here to help you strengthen your business, make it more successful, and help you to streamline the process. Today, we're going to be talking about as a business owner, depending on where you are, whether you're considered a small business or you are growing or you're making some changes. These are some of the decisions that you'll be making, and I want to make sure that you have all the tools to do so. We're going to be talking about either buying HR expertise, which would be to hire a consultant to handle a few projects, or to hire HR staff. So let's get started. Okay, we're going to jump right in. Stay tuned. Shelley Consulting. Let's build your next level of success together. Mentor. All right. So let's get into this, shall we? All right. Now, um, buying the HR expertise. Let's talk about this first. The initial assumptions for most business owners is going to be like hiring an HR employee or buying HR expertise are not the same business decision, and I want to give you some context on that. Um, one gives you an additional payroll, the other gives you access to solutions that you may be able to implement right away. Many CEOs, let me make sure you can see this. Many CEOs assume that every HR problem requires another full time employee. That is definitely not the case. Before you add a salary, benefits, taxes, training, and management responsibilities, you need to determine what your business actually needs first. All right. Let's make sure we define the difference between an HR employee or needing HR expertise with a consultant. Okay. Hiring an HR employee means adding someone to your permanent workforce to manage ongoing daily responsibilities such as benefits and payroll coordination, recruiting and onboarding, personnel documentation, policy administration, routine employee relations matters. Oh, that's far from routine. That turns into a daily situation. Trust and believe. You're going to do both. Um, let's see here. Yes, you're going to be hiring an individual that occupies that role within your organization. That does not mean, right? Which is great if that's what you want. Now, if you want HR expertise, let's look at it this way. You to engage an experienced HR consultant or a fractional HR partner like myself to solve a the specific or defined business problem, strengthen your infrastructure, or reduce your liability exposure. Here is what how the expertise is going to be used. You may need the expertise to investigate a serious employee complaint that you got either from a state or federal entity, addressing inconsistent management practices. You're going to have a good handle on what's going on to be able to even get that. Or if you don't have a handle, but you know that there's complaints that may be documented or not documented, that's something also for you to look at. Building a compliant policies and procedures or processes. If you don't have any of those things in place and you need them in order for you to avoid exposing yourself business wise, preparing for organizational growth as far as moving, getting things organized, creating process, creating an SOP, creating standard operating procedures to streamline your departments, and restructuring roles and responsibilities. As a fractional HR consultant or as an HR consultant in general, um, as a business owner, you're not purchasing hours from me or someone like me. You are purchasing the expertise, the judgment, the strategy, and the risk reduction for, depending on the level and scope of the project. It's going to, be more or less expensive depending on the extent of the project. Now, Now that you understand what both of those are, right? A full-time HR a full-time HR person or employee may not be the right solution. It may not be. Let's take a look here. Some companies hire an HR employee because leadership feels overwhelmed. It may mean your processes are unclear. You may need to get some clarification on that. Your manager may not have been trained. That's also very likely because sometimes, as business owners, you promote the person that's good at their job, but don't necessarily have leadership skills, which is also something that you should train up for. Um, your documentation is inconsistent. Oh Lord. Documentation beats conversation every day, every every day of the week and twice on Sunday. As an HR professional, if it's not documented, it didn't happen, and you do not want to be traveling in those waters for very long as a business owner, because sooner or later, the price on that, or the on the inevitable taxes on that, becomes due. Okay. Leadership is avoiding difficult employee decisions, like keeping a leader in place that is running away all your good employees, or keeping a process in place that is by far the most inconsistent thing and is costing you on the back end in more ways than one. Okay, placing a new employee inside a broken system does not repair the system. It simply gives that employee a front row seat to the dysfunction. If you hire an HR person and you don't have a clear job description, or clear path for them to succeed, they will come there, and if they have the proper experience, they can help you clean up some of it, but they may not be able to clean up all of it if you don't have certain things in place. Okay, so hiring an HR employee is not automatically the right solution, guys. What does an HR professional, as far as hiring an HR employee, really cost you? Okay, I want to make sure you see all of this. The expense is not limited to just salary. A full time HR person may also include payroll taxes, health and retirement benefits, paid time off, recruiting expenses, technology and equipment, training and professional development, management and supervision, the financial consequences of hiring the wrong person. Because then you start talking about turnover. If the company only needs senior level expertise for a limited number of time per month, a full time hire could be an unnecessary expense. But there are ways to figure out which one you need as a business owner. Okay. Let's see here. So, when buying HR expertise makes more sense, right? Consulting support may be obtaining an HR consulting support may be the best decision if this is what your needs are. Okay, let's make this so you can see this a little bit better. Support may be better because your business is growing, but the HR workload does not justify a full time senior professional. You have an urgent employee relations or compliant concern, but it's not something that is going to continue on once it's resolved. Your current administrator handles HR tasks but lacks the strategic expertise. So you may have an admin doing a lot of admin work that's related to HR, but they may not have the strategic and experienced background to be able to handle the more comprehensive cases of risk exposure, employee relations, if you guys get some kind of an EEOC charge, things of that nature. They may not have the bandwidth or the experience to handle those sorts of higher level HR situations. You need systems, policies, or processes developed, especially when your company is growing or you want to streamline the process so your company can grow and have the proper processes and stability to sustain that growth. You're preparing to hire, restructure, or terminate employees, or conduct layoffs. That I do also offer outplacement services as well, as as well as being a fractional HR consultant. So it makes sense for you to obtain a consultant in a lot of these situations versus hiring a senior HR full-time staff person. You need an objective expert who can advise leadership without internal politics or not being tied to that specifically. You want to have somebody that has a different eye, that has um, a completely different perspective, not being an employee of the organization. You want that person to understand your liability exposure before making a costly decision. The company receives the level of expertise it needs without carrying the full cost of another permanent position. Now, when HR staff is the best choice, it is the best choice when, drum roll please, a full-time HR employee is the best choice when the daily workload consistently requires full-time coverage. The organization has a significant number of employees. Now, the number of employees may vary depending on industry based on what you need. Recruiting, onboarding, benefits, and employee support requires constant attention. And leadership has already established functional HR systems, right? There is enough work and budget to sustain this position long term. That's when you will need to hire HR staff, right? But even then, you must hire for the right level. Hiring the wrong level of HR support creates another expensive gap, and we want to avoid that as well. Now, there may be a hybrid option, which let's see how we can talk about that as well. The decision does not always have to be a consultant versus an employee. A company may use an internal HR coordinator for routine administration, which their pay range may be at a lower range, or you may need less experience. Maybe 3 to 5 years of HR coordination experience versus 10 to 15 years of an HR manager or an HR senior generalist, things of that nature. A fractional HR consultant for strategic compliance, investigation, and executive advisement. This approach gives the organization the daily support and the senior level expertise without requiring every HR capability to exist in a one salaried position. This often is more financially responsible because it's going to cost you less on the back end. For smaller and medium sized businesses that's either growing or is making some changes and may need the administration piece, but needs the more high level expertise on a fractional or consulting type level. Okay. Now, every CEO should ask these questions, right? And as much as I love to say, the presidents of organizations, the owner of businesses, every CEO or every business owner should ask this question before hiring. What specific business problems are we trying to solve here? Is the need for administrative, operational, or strategic compliance, are all of those related? 3, do we have enough ongoing work to justify full time employment? Right? Does this problem require an employee or an experienced specialist for a set period of time? What could happen if we hire someone without the appropriate expertise? That's going to cost you in the end. What would fractional HR support or HR consulting support look like, or solve the problem? Would that solve the problem faster at a lower overall cost? Hmm. Have we evaluated our current HR liability exposure? Do you know what that is? If leadership cannot, if you as a CEO or you as a business owner cannot clearly answer these questions, the company may you guys may not be ready to post an HR position. You may not be ready for that, and that's okay. It's always best to know where you are instead of making a rushed decision. Okay? CEOs, stop treating every HR challenge like a staffing problem. Sometimes you need another employee, sometimes you need a better process. Sometimes you need an experienced advisor who can identify the risk, solve the problem, and help leadership make the right decisions. The goal is not to avoid hiring. The goal is to stop hiring before you understand what your business actually needs. So, decision time, folks. I want you to understand here, right? As the one of the fractional HR consultants for Mentor Shelley Consulting, if you're considering hiring and you're having to decipher should I do one or two of different things, here's what I offer you first, right? If you're considering hiring an HR specialist, a generalist, a manager, consultant, or a business partner, go ahead and schedule this HR discovery call with me at mentorshelley.com/HR cons. And we'll discuss your current HR challenges, identify potential liability exposure, and determine whether your company needs a full time employee, fractional HR expertise, or a more strategic combination of both. I also have a specific HR liability assessment that you can also schedule with me after we have the conversation with the discovery call that can absolutely answer that question in detail with a full on audit. So, if you have questions, concerns, please go ahead and go to mentorshelley.com/HR cons. You can either leave me a voice message on that page or you can go ahead and schedule that HR discovery call so we can have that conversation. Instead of wondering what to do, let's take some action so you know exactly what to do. Of course, this is Mentor Shelley, your fractional HR consultant, here to help you streamline your processes and help you to grow and flourish in the business world. All right, guys, take care. You have a good one. Bye.